It was just another day on the schoolyard, kids laughing, playing, and roughhousing. But in the corner of the playground, Liam, a quiet boy with a love for drawing, was facing a bully's wrath. Jake, the school's biggest troublemaker, loomed over him, smirking as he snatched Liam's prized sketchbook and ripped it apart. Liam didn't yell, didn't cry. Instead, he looked Jake in the eye and said calmly, "You shouldn't have done that. My uncle won't like it." Jake laughed. "Oh yeah? What's he gonna do?" Little did Jake know, Liam's uncle was none other than The Rock. And when family is involved, The Rock doesn't back down. What happened next? Well, let's just say Jake was about to learn a lesson he'd never forget. Liam was the kind of kid who liked to stay out of trouble, quiet and unassuming. He spent most of his free time sketching superheroes in his well-worn sketchbook. His drawings were vivid and detailed, spandex-clad heroes leaping into action, laser beams slicing through the sky, and towering villains brought to life with just a few strokes of his pencil. It was his escape, his little corner of the world where he felt invincible. But life outside the pages of his sketchbook wasn't as kind to him. Liam had always been on the smaller side, a natural target for kids like Jake, the self-proclaimed king of the playground. Jake was everything Liam wasn't: loud, brash, and unafraid to throw his weight around. To Jake, picking on Liam was just another way to entertain himself during recess. One sunny afternoon, as the schoolyard buzzed with the sounds of kids playing tag and shooting hoops, Liam sat cross-legged beneath a tree, sketchbook in hand. His pencil glided across the page, bringing to life a new superhero he'd been imagining all week. He was so engrossed in his work that he didn't notice Jake and his crew approaching. "Hey, Liam!" Jake's voice rang out, loud and mocking. Liam stiffened, but didn't look up. "What's you drawing this time? Another one of your loser superheroes?" Liam tried to ignore him, focusing on his sketch. But Jake wasn't the type to take being ignored lightly. He strode over, snatching the sketchbook from Liam's hands. "Hey, give that back!" Liam protested, scrambling to his feet. His voice wavered, but there was a determination in his eyes. Jake flipped through the pages, holding the book up high so Liam couldn't reach it. "Wow, look at this. Super Liam? Is this supposed to be you?" He smirked and turned to his friends, who laughed on cue. "What's his superpower? Crying?" The other kids around the playground started to notice the commotion. Liam's face burned as he saw them turning to watch. He clenched his fists but knew better than to try and grab the book. Jake was bigger, stronger, and had the whole playground wrapped around his finger. "Seriously, this is garbage," Jake sneered, tearing a page out of the sketchbook. The sound of paper ripping was like a dagger to Liam's chest. "You should thank me for putting this out of its misery." Liam's heart pounded. Anger and humiliation churned inside him, but he took a deep breath and forced himself to stay calm. Then, in a voice steadier than he felt, he said, "You shouldn't have done that. My uncle won't like it." Jake froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. "Your uncle? What's he gonna do? Draw me a picture?" Liam didn't answer. He just stared at Jake with a quiet intensity that was almost unsettling. Jake's laughter faltered, but he quickly covered it up with a smirk. "Whatever, dude," he said, tossing the torn sketchbook onto the ground. "Tell your uncle I said hi." As Jake and his friends walked away, Liam knelt to pick up the pieces of his sketchbook. His hands shook, not just from anger, but from something deeper, a sense of helplessness he couldn't shake. He hugged the damaged book to his chest and made his way back to the school building, avoiding the curious stares of his classmates. That evening, Liam sat at the dinner table, picking at his food. His mom noticed immediately. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, concern etched on her face. Liam hesitated. He didn't like making a big deal out of things, but the day's events had been eating at him. Finally, he set his fork down and said, "It's nothing. Just school stuff." His mom raised an eyebrow. "School stuff? That doesn't sound like nothing. Did something happen?" Before Liam could answer, the front door swung open, and a booming voice filled the house. "Smells like someone's been cooking up a storm." Liam's face lit up for the first time all day. He jumped out of his chair and ran to the door. Uncle Dwayne. Standing in the doorway was Dwayne Johnson, better known to the world as The Rock. To Liam, though he was just Uncle Dwayne, the coolest guy in the world who always had time for his favorite nephew. "Hey, buddy." The Rock scooped Liam up in a bear hug, his signature grin lighting up the room. "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." Liam hesitated again, but the warmth of his uncle's presence made it easier to talk. "There's this kid at school," he began. "He's been picking on me. He tore up my sketchbook today." The Rock's expression darkened slightly, but his voice remained calm. "Is that so?" he said, setting Liam down. "Tell me more." As Liam recounted the day's events, the Rock listened intently, his brow furrowing. When Liam finished, he placed a reassuring hand on his nephew's shoulder. "Well, champ, you did the right thing by staying calm. But you know what? Nobody messes with my nephew and gets away with it. What are you going to do?" Liam asked, a mix of curiosity and hope in his eyes. The Rock winked. "Don't you worry about that, buddy. I got it covered." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Liam tried to focus on his homework, but his mind kept drifting back to what his uncle might do. He wasn't sure if he wanted the Rock to show up at his school. It could make things worse, or it could be the coolest thing ever. Either way, Liam felt a flicker of hope for the first time that day. That night, as he lay in bed, Liam replayed his uncle's words in his mind. "Nobody messes with my nephew." For the first time in a long time, he felt like he wasn't alone. Little did he know, his uncle's plan would set the stage for a schoolyard encounter no one would ever forget. The following weekend, Liam's family was hosting a barbecue at their house. The backyard was alive with the sizzle of the grill, the laughter of adults catching up, and the excited chatter of kids playing. But despite the festive atmosphere, Liam was still subdued, clutching a new sketchbook his mom had bought him to replace the one Jake had destroyed. Sitting at the edge of the patio, Liam doodled absent-mindedly, trying to shake the memory of Jake's sneer and the sound of his beloved pages being torn apart. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice his uncle, Dwayne, approaching. "Hey, champ," the Rock said, crouching down beside him. "What's with the long face? You're supposed to be having fun." Liam shrugged. "I'm okay," he said, though his voice betrayed him. The Rock studied his nephew for a moment, then sat down beside him, towering even while seated. "Is this about that bully you told me about?" he asked gently. Liam nodded, his gaze fixed on the sketch he was working on. A superhero with broad shoulders, a determined expression, and unmistakably, the trademark raised eyebrow of the Rock. Dwayne chuckled when he noticed the resemblance. "Let me guess. This guy takes down bad guys and protects the innocent?" "Yeah," Liam said, his lips twitching into a small smile. "He doesn't let anyone get away with being mean." "Well, that sounds like a guy I'd want on my team," the Rock said, putting a reassuring hand on Liam's shoulder. "But you know what? You've got someone just as tough looking out for you in real life." Liam looked up at his uncle, hope flickering in his eyes. "You mean you? Who else?" Dwayne grinned. "Listen, buddy, I'm not just here to sign autographs and grill burgers. I'm here for you. And I've got an idea about how we can handle that bully of yours." "What's the plan?" Liam asked, a mix of excitement and apprehension in his voice. "First, we're going to enjoy this barbecue," the Rock said, ruffling Liam's hair. "Then on Monday, I'll swing by your school. Let's see if this Jake kid is as tough as he thinks he is." Liam's jaw dropped. "You're coming to my school? Like in person?" "You bet," the Rock said, flashing his signature smile. "But don't worry, I won't embarrass you." "Well, maybe just a little." Liam laughed despite himself. The thought of his uncle confronting Jake was both thrilling and terrifying. But deep down, he felt a spark of confidence he hadn't felt in a long time. If anyone could stand up to Jake, it was the Rock. Monday morning arrived with a mix of anticipation and nervous energy. Liam had barely slept, his mind racing with what might happen. As he walked to school, his heart pounded in his chest. He kept replaying the moment in his head. Jake's reaction when he realized who Liam's uncle was. The schoolyard was already buzzing with activity when Liam arrived. He spotted Jake near the basketball court, laughing with his friends and tossing a ball back and forth. Liam felt a familiar pang of anxiety, but took a deep breath. Not today, he thought. Today is different. The bell rang, and the students filed into the building. Classes dragged on, each minute feeling like an hour. By lunchtime, Liam could barely contain his anticipation. He made his way to the cafeteria, scanning the room for Jake. Sure enough, the bully was holding court at his usual table, surrounded by his cronies. Then, the moment Liam had been waiting for arrived. The cafeteria doors swung open, and a hush fell over the room. There, filling the doorway with his massive frame, stood Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He wore a pair of aviator sunglasses and a leather jacket, looking every bit the action hero Liam had always imagined him to be. Students gasped, and whispers spread like wildfire. "Is that The Rock? What's he doing here? No way." The Rock strode into the cafeteria like he owned the place, his confident smile lighting up the room. He scanned the crowd until his eyes landed on Liam, who was standing frozen near the dessert line. "There's my guy," The Rock called out, his voice booming. Liam felt every pair of eyes in the room turn to him. Dwayne crossed the room in a few long strides, pulling Liam into a one-armed hug. "You doing okay, buddy?" he asked, his voice warm but loud enough for everyone to hear. Liam nodded, his cheeks burning as he glanced around the room. Most of the kids looked awestruck, but a few were nudging each other, whispering about why The Rock was there. And then there was Jake, who sat frozen at his table, his usual smirk replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. The Rock's gaze shifted to Jake, and his smile widened. "So," he said, loud enough for the entire cafeteria to hear, "which one of you is Jake?" A murmur rippled through the room as everyone turned to look at the bully. Jake swallowed hard, his bravado faltering under The Rock's piercing gaze. Slowly, he raised his hand. That's me." Dwayne nodded, taking a step closer to Jake's table. "Jake," he said, his tone calm but firm, "I hear you've been giving my nephew a hard time." Jake's face turned pale. "I didn't mean to." The Rock held up a hand, silencing him. "Listen, kid," he said, his voice steady but filled with authority. "I don't like bullies, but I do believe in second chances. So, here's what we're going to do. You're going to apologize to Liam and promise to treat him, and everyone else in this school, with respect. Got it?" Jake nodded frantically, his bravado completely gone. "Yes, sir. I promise." The Rock leaned in slightly, lowering his sunglasses to look Jake directly in the eye. "Good? Because if I hear otherwise," he let the sentence hang in the air, his signature eyebrow raised. The entire cafeteria erupted in whispers, the tension almost palpable. Then, with a smile, The Rock straightened up and turned back to Liam. "Let's grab some lunch, buddy. I hear the mac and cheese here is pretty good." Liam couldn't help but grin as he followed his uncle to the lunch line, the weight that had been pressing down on him for weeks finally lifting. For the first time, he felt like he had someone in his corner, and the entire school knew it. As they sat down to eat, Liam glanced over at Jake, who was quietly sitting at his table, looking more subdued than Liam had ever seen him. The tables had turned, and Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a surprising turn in his relationship with Jake, and a lesson in how even the strongest people can choose kindness over conflict. The bell signaling the end of lunch reverberated through the hallways, but the cafeteria was still buzzing with chatter. Word had spread like wildfire. The Rock was in the building, and he wasn't just visiting. He was there for a reason. Liam, sitting beside his uncle, felt like he was walking on air. For the first time, he wasn't worried about Jake or what might happen next. The afternoon classes dragged on, but the atmosphere in the school was electric. By the time recess rolled around, the playground felt like a stage set for something big. The kids had already spread the word that The Rock was coming outside, and everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Jake, on the other hand, was dreading the encounter. He'd spent the rest of lunch in silence, replaying the moment The Rock had called him out in front of everyone. His friends had abandoned their usual jokes, clearly uneasy about sticking too close to Jake with The Rock around. For the first time, Jake felt what it was like to be on the receiving end of judgment. As the students poured onto the playground, Liam walked beside his uncle, who was still the picture of confidence. Kids parted like the Red Sea as the duo strolled across the yard. Some whispered, others stared, and a few cautiously waved at Dwayne, who gave them a friendly nod. And then they saw Jake. He was standing near the basketball court, trying his best to blend in with the crowd. But when The Rock stopped and looked directly at him, there was no escaping. "Jake!" The Rock called out, his voice cutting through the chatter like a knife. The entire playground fell silent. Jake hesitated for a moment, then slowly stepped forward, his usual swagger completely gone. He stopped a few feet away from the rock, looking up at him like a deer caught in headlights. "Good to see you again, buddy," Dwayne said, his tone friendly but firm. "We've got some unfinished business, don't we?" Jake nodded quickly. Yeah. Yes, sir." The rock crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. "So, what do you think we should do about this situation?" Jake shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the crowd of kids surrounding them. I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. Dwayne tilted his head. "What was that?" "Didn't quite catch it." Jake cleared his throat and spoke louder. "I'm sorry, Liam, for everything. I shouldn't have taken your sketchbook, and I shouldn't have been mean to you." Liam, standing a few steps behind his uncle, felt a mix of emotions. Part of him wanted to stay angry, but another part of him, the part his mom always encouraged, wanted to forgive. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. "Okay, I forgive you." The rock smiled, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. "That's my boy," he said warmly. Then he turned back to Jake. "Now, Jake, I want you to think about something. Being strong doesn't mean putting other people down. Real strength is about lifting others up. Got it?" "Yes, sir," Jake said quickly. Dwayne leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough to make the moment feel personal. "And remember, if I hear you've been picking on anyone else," he let the sentence hang, raising his trademark eyebrow. The kids watching gasped, and a few giggled nervously. Jake nodded again, his face red with embarrassment. "I won't. I promise." The rock straightened up and clapped his hands together, his smile returning. "Good. Now let's make this playground a place where everyone can have fun, all right?" The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, and Dwayne gave a small wave before turning back to Liam. "How about a game of basketball, champ? Let's show these kids what teamwork looks like." Liam's eyes lit up. "Really? You'll play with me?" "Of course," Dwayne said, tossing him the ball. "Let's do it." What happened next became playground legend. The Rock and Liam teamed up against Jake and a few other kids in a friendly game of basketball. At first, Jake was stiff and nervous, but as the game went on, the tension melted away. By the end, everyone was laughing and cheering, and even Jake managed to smile. After the game, Dwayne gathered the kids together. "Remember this," he said, addressing everyone. "Life's not about how tough you look or how loud you are. It's about how you treat the people around you. And trust me, being kind makes you a real hero." The kids nodded, hanging on his every word. For Liam, it was a moment he'd never forget, a day when the tables turned, not through anger or revenge, but through understanding and second chances. As the school day came to an end, Dwayne gave Liam one last hug. "Proud of you, buddy," he said. "You're stronger than you know." Liam smiled up at his uncle, feeling a surge of confidence he'd never felt before. "Thanks, Uncle Dwayne. You're the best." "Anytime, champ," The Rock said, ruffling Liam's hair. "Now, go show the world what a real superhero looks like." With that, Dwayne left, leaving behind a playground full of kids who had learned a lesson in respect, courage, and the power of kindness. And for Liam, it was the start of a new chapter, one where he no longer felt small or invisible, but capable of standing tall, just like his uncle had taught him. The school buzzed with a new energy in the days following The Rock's visit. It wasn't just about the fact that a global superstar had graced their playground. It was about the change he had sparked. For the first time in a long while, the air felt lighter, the tension between students had eased, and even Jake seemed like a different person. Jake's transformation wasn't instant, but it was noticeable. The once overconfident bully was now quieter, more reserved, and surprisingly kinder. During recess, instead of dominating the basketball court with his friends, he approached Liam. "Hey, Jake started awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "I wanted to say thanks for forgiving me." Liam looked up from his sketchbook, surprised. "Oh, yeah, sure." And Jake continued, glancing down at his sneakers. "I was wondering if maybe you could teach me how to draw. Like you do?" Liam blinked. "You want me to teach you?" Jake shrugged, looking sheepish. "Yeah, your drawings are cool, and I thought maybe it'd be fun to try." Liam hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "Okay, I can show you some stuff. The two sat down under the tree where Liam usually sketched. At first, their conversation was stilted, but as Liam started explaining the basics of drawing, how to create shapes, sketch outlines, and add details, they both began to relax. Jake's first attempts were clumsy, but Liam didn't laugh. Instead, he encouraged him, pointing out what he'd done well and how he could improve. Over the next few weeks, a surprising friendship began to form. Jake started joining Liam during lunch and recess, trading basketball for sketching. The other kids noticed the change, and soon, even those who had once been afraid of Jake were sitting with them, asking to learn how to draw or just enjoying the newfound sense of peace on the playground. One day, as they sat under the tree, Jake handed Liam a folded piece of paper. "Here," he said, looking nervous. "I drew something for you." Liam unfolded the paper to find a drawing of a superhero, broad shoulders, a confident stance, and a striking resemblance to the Rock. Liam laughed. "This is awesome. You've gotten really good." Jake grinned, relief washing over his face. "Thanks. I figured, after everything, I wanted to make something to say thanks for giving me a second chance." Liam nodded, tucking the drawing into his sketchbook. "Well, everyone deserves a second chance. Even you." At home, Liam's mom noticed the change in her son. He was more confident, more relaxed, and he talked about school with an excitement she hadn't seen in years. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, Liam pulled out his sketchbook to show her his latest drawings. "These are amazing, sweetheart," she said, flipping through the pages. "And what's this?" She pointed to Jake's superhero drawing. "Oh, that's from Jake," Liam explained. "He's been drawing with me during recess." "Jake? The same Jake who was giving you trouble?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Liam nodded. "Yeah, he's different now. Uncle Dwayne talked to him, and I guess he listened." His mom smiled, her eyes softening. "Well, I think your uncle was right about you, Liam. You really are a superhero." Liam blushed, but smiled back. "Thanks, Mom." The story of the Rock's visit became the stuff of legend at Liam's school. For months, kids would reenact the moment in the cafeteria when he had called Jake out, their voices booming as they mimicked his catchphrases. But more than the excitement of having a celebrity on campus, the real legacy was the lesson he had left behind. Jake's transformation served as a reminder to everyone that strength wasn't about overpowering others. It was about lifting them up. And for Liam, the experience taught him that even in the face of adversity, he could find his own strength. As Liam sat under the tree one sunny afternoon, sketching a new superhero, he glanced at Jake, who was hunched over his own drawing a few feet away. A smile spread across Liam's face. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel small or invisible. He felt strong. He felt seen. And most importantly, he felt like he had the power to make a difference, not just in his art, but in the world around him. In the end, it wasn't just The Rock who had shown Jake the value of kindness. It was Liam, with his quiet strength and willingness to forgive, who had truly turned things around. And as he worked on his latest sketch, Liam knew one thing for sure. Real superheroes didn't need capes. They just needed the courage to stand up for what was right.